You have a test next Thursday, like a week and a day. On the 3rd, the next 2.2 test. Today we're finding rate of change from a table and from 2 points, so I'll show you how to do that on the notes today. Make sure you've turned in evaluating functions from the last couple days. Any missing work. Remember, quiz and test corrections are not taken home. You got to do them only here. You leave them here. So since you have a Chromebook, like yesterday's warm-up, you should be able to evaluate a function using Desmos, right? So a reminder, you got to pull up Desmos. Step 1, type out the function. Okay, so f of x equals. Now, does anybody have trouble typing in the big fraction? Because sometimes it's hard to get 2 terms on the top. So look, this is what you can do. You can put the top in parentheses, and it'll make your typing it in easier. 5x minus 10 on top in parentheses, and then when you hit divide, now it'll make a big fraction with 15 on the bottom, okay? Everyone sees this? Now, that's the function. Now we're going to type the evaluation, which is f of 8, and it's going to evaluate the function for us. Do you see how to get the answer? We got 2. Whenever you do anything like yesterday's assignment, you can type in the function, type in the evaluation, it'll evaluate it for you. Of course, you could do it by hand using order of operations PEMDAS, which is great. However, this is valid too. This is how you'll do it. You can do it on the EOC. Again, we want you to knock that out. So, go ahead and close your Chromebook lids. This shouldn't take too long, but I don't want you distracted while we're going over this, please. When we're done, of course, you can pop it open and use Desmos if you need to. Okay, so everyone's looking at this. Let's go ahead and write this down. All right, go and write this down, please. So we are finding rate of change from tables and 2 points. You got to know a few things. First of all, when I say rate of change, I mean slope, okay? Another word for slope is rate of change. Rate of change is the change in y vertically over the change in x horizontally, which we've talked about is rise over run. These all mean the same thing, okay? Slope is rate of change in y over change in x, rise over run. And when you rise over run, it's always from left to right. Left to right. Now, when you're finding the rate of change, by the way, what does rate of change mean? Slope. What does slope mean? Rate of change. If I was going to make a fraction for slope and rate of change, it would be rise over run, right? Okay, so we've talked about it with the graph. Do you remember that? We did it right here, right? On the 9th, rise over run. You can either rise up to the right for positive, or you can rise down to the right for negative. It's weird. Okay. But that's rise over run. Now here's the deal. What if you don't have a graph? What if you have either a table or points? So for the table, what we want to make is called bird beaks. Okay? Bird beaks. Let me show you from scratch here. So make sure you got this. Okay. So look, when you do this, I call this, when I say bird beak, I'm talking about like this, because it kind of looks like a bird beak, right? Like here's a bird eating some seed. Okay, look, it's a bird beak. Okay, on this side, it's a bird beak. Okay, and what we want to do, whoa, 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 whoa. Let me get rid of some of this stuff. All right, there we go. Okay, sorry, we got bird beaks. Oh, my brother. Okay. Now, whenever you do this, you do it from bottom minus top. Okay. Whenever you do a bird beak, you're going to find the difference between them, and you're going to do bottom minus top. Okay, write that down somewhere over here. The change in y, you do the bottom number minus the top number. So that's -5 minus 3 for the change in y right here. That goes on top of your fraction, and then you do bottom minus top on the left x side, 7 minus 3. That's the change in x on the left, 7 minus 3, bottom minus top. All right, so you're going to take those numbers and do the math. What is -5 minus 3? We end up getting -8. What's 7 minus 3? You end up getting 4. And then here's the deal. You are allowed to use Desmos to type this in, and when it reduces, it gives you -2. Okay? So to find the rate of change means slope. To find the slope of a table, you draw like a bird beak and you do bottom minus top from the y over bottom minus top on the x. Make that fraction, reduce it. That is your slope or rate of change. Okay? Now, sometimes when you do this, you'll get a fraction with a 0 on top. If you get a 0 on top, that's a 0 slope. Sometimes you'll get the 0 on the bottom. That's called undefined. Okay? So if you end up with a 0 on top, that's a 0 slope. It's horizontal. If you end up with a 0 on the bottom, you cannot divide by 0. You cannot have a 0 on the bottom in the denominator. That's going to be called undefined. Hopefully you can read my horrible handwriting. Okay, so those are two weird situations, which we'll talk about later in these notes. But that's the basics of what we just talked about. Okay, so again, when you're doing this, I call this stuff bird beaks. And bird beaks are these things right here. Okay? That's a non-technical, non-mathematical term for that little symbol I write, okay? That's just showing me that I know on my table, I'm subtracting bottom minus top, bottom minus top. Okay, are we good on that? Let's go ahead and get the next couple blanks here. So this says, for each of the tables, we're going to find the change in y. Does everyone know change in y is the rise? Go ahead and write that down in that blank next to y. It's the rise. And the change in x is the run. Rise over run. Change in y over change in x. Same thing. So when we write that ratio, that fraction, rise over run, okay, you can plug it into your Desmos calculator and it'll reduce it for you. So I'm going to show you how you can use Desmos to do these, but let's do some examples now together. Ready? Okie dokie. Here we go. Let's do table A, B, and C. Now, I see a table. I'm going to remember Mr. G said bird beaks, whatever that is. And it's going to be bottom minus top. So watch this. I'm going to pick two numbers and do bottom minus top. 3 minus 1. Don't do top minus bottom. Don't do 1 minus 3. Bottom minus top. So 3 minus 1 over. And then on the x side, bottom minus top is 0 minus negative 3. It's kind of weird, but I'm subtracting a negative. Now maybe you already know this, but when you subtract a negative, it turns into a positive. Okay. Now here's the deal. I'm just going to write those two things the way they are on top of each other. What goes on top, y or x? Y. Okay, so look right here. Change in y over change in x. Okay, so the y change, the right side goes on top, and the x left side goes on bottom. Okay, so we don't want to get that mixed up. So the change in y, 3 minus 1, over the change in x, 0 minus negative 3. Now, some of us struggle with adding and subtracting positive and negative numbers. So here's what I suggest. Just use Desmos. Let it do the work for you, okay? So I'm going to just type that fraction in. 3 minus 1 on top. I'm going to put that in parentheses. Over, the bottom is 0 minus negative 3. It does not matter how it looks. Just make sure it matches, okay? Minus a negative is fine. You don't have to make it a plus sign when you type it in, but if you did, it would give you the same answer. Now, I don't want decimals. So how do I turn that back into a fraction? Use this button off to the left here. So I click it. Sometimes you have to click it like multiple times and it'll pop up with 2 over 3. Do you see how this works? On the right side, on the y side, you do bottom minus top. And then on the left x side, you do bottom minus top, make it a fraction, Desmos it. Here's the next question though. Is that positive, negative, 0, or undefined? So there's no zeros involved. So is it positive or negative? What do you think? Positive because it's literally not negative. It's positive. Cool. Another table. What are we going to do? Bird beaks, bottom minus top, bottom minus top. Start with the y on the right. Bottom minus top is negative 1 minus negative 6. Negative 1 minus negative 6. It's kind of hard to see that maybe, but you're subtracting a negative 6. On the right side, you're doing 0 minus 3. Can you put those in a fraction? Change in y over change in x. So bottom minus top is negative 1 minus negative 6. Change in x, 0. Bottom minus top is 0 minus 3. Once again, could you type that into your Desmos calculator to get your reduced slope? Let's try it. Yes, sir. Did I cover it up? My bad. I covered it up and I didn't see that. So 0 minus negative 3. I almost told y'all wrong. Make sure you get this right here. My bad. And right here on the bottom. Okay, let's type this in correctly. Thank you for catching that. 1 minus negative 6. Sorry, negative 1 minus negative 6. Lots of negatives, so if you don't want to miss any of these, so don't make my mistake. So again, see how I type it. Negative 1, minus sign, negative sign, 6. All in parentheses, over 0 minus negative 3. So I get 1.6 repeating. Click that fraction button a couple times, and it'll give you a 5 over 3, right? Is that positive or negative, or 0 or undefined? What do you think? There's no zeros. It is positive because there's no negative, and the final result. There's a ton of negatives before that, but the final result is positive, okay? Okay, again, bird beaks. On the y side, on the right side, bottom minus top, 10 minus 12. And then change in x. On the left side, bottom minus top, 15 minus 10. By the way, you could do this anywhere on the table as long as you're matching them up, like at the same spot. Okay, so y on the top, 10 minus 12. X on the bottom, 15 minus 10. If you can drag that over to Desmos, you'll be all right. Excuse me. Okay. May I? Thank you very much. So, oops. Ten minus 12 on top, 15 minus 10 on the bottom. I get negative 0.4, but I want to do what? Make sure it's a fraction. Hit that fraction button a few times. Negative 2 over 5. And now that I see that negative sign, I know it's a negative slope. That's good. Okay. Flip it over, please. That's how you do tables. Let's talk about 2 points. Okay. Does anyone still need this real quick? Going once. Going twice. On the back side, let's talk about finding the rate of change. What's another word for rate of change? Slope. From 2 points. So, everybody, can you outline this slope formula? You're going to need this. This is super important. Muy importante. All right, so y2 minus y1, that's kind of what we were doing with the bird beaks. We were subtracting them, right? And then x2 minus x1, that's kind of what we were doing with the bird beaks on the x side. This is literally what we were just doing on a table, but now it's in an equation form, a formula, okay? Now, we're going to do an example with these numbers. I need you to label these with me, okay? So label this correctly. Ready? This first point on the left, 10, 12, is going to be x1, y1. Label that like that with the little subscripts. X little 1, y little 1. And then 25, 6, the second point is going to be x little 2, y little 2. X, those are subscripts, right? You don't have to label them every time if you know what they are, but labeling them helps you see what goes where. So look, we're going to do y2 right here minus y1. You'll see that on the top of the fraction here. y2 minus y1 is going to be, go ahead and draw a fraction bar. y2 is 6. You have to put the minus sign, and then y1 is 12. 6 minus 12 goes on top. Then on the bottom of your fraction, you have x2, which is 25, minus, you always have to put that minus sign, and then x1 is 10. You could do some math and figure it out. Also, you could just type it into Desmos. Again, Desmos can help you do the computation real quick. So let's try that. In parentheses, 6 minus 12 divided by 25 minus 10. Negative 0.4. I can hit the fraction bar a few times. Negative 2 over 5. All right. It's a negative slope. Now that's just going straight to Desmos. Now they're telling us to substitute like we did. Then they want us to simplify. So I'm going to show you the long way. 6 minus 12 is negative 6. 25 minus 10 is 15. And then they say to reduce the fraction. If you divide the top and the bottom by 3, you get negative 2 over 5. Okay? I don't mind if you do the mental math and the reducing by hand or mental math. However, I still would like for you to check your answer the Desmos way. Just type it in, because there's no reason to get the wrong answer because you were too proud to check your work. Use Desmos at least to check your work. And if you want to just go straight there, that's fine. Okay? So again, you can just type it into Desmos and get the answer. Okay, let's do some examples of that, and we'll be done. So everyone knows where the formula is up here at the top. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, right? Let's do an example. Number 1, y2 minus y1. So I'm going to underline it. y2 is 1, y1 is 5. So I'm going to put a fraction bar, 1 minus 5. And then I'm going to do x2 minus x1, 3 minus 2. Can you take it to Desmos and get the answer? When I typed it in, I got -4. That doesn't reduce to anything. It's literally just -4. So that's the rate of change, aka the slope. Does everyone know rate of change is slope? I keep saying it, because you got to know it. Rate of change means slope. Does everyone write this down? Please. I am going to skip to number 3 and go back to 2 and 4, just so I don't have to move my calculator over here. So once again, we're going to do y2 minus y1. So y2 is -7 minus y1 is also -7. Fraction bar, y2 minus y1. Notice there is always a subtraction sign in the middle, and you do this even if the second number is negative. Okay, now x2 is -13. Always put the minus. x1 is 11. Let's take it to Desmos. -7 minus -7 divided by -13 minus 11. I finally got a 0 slope. 0 means 0, so that's it. And just so you know, 0 will be horizontal. 0 takes 0 effort to stand on, like the floor, going from left to right, horizontal. That's a 0 slope. Okay. Let's go back up to number 2. On number 2, I'm going to do y2 minus y1. Fraction bar, 13 minus -4. And then x2 minus x1. 5 minus -8. Could you take that to Desmos? So 13 minus -4 divided by 5 minus -8. Okay, so I get something weird. I'm going to hit that fraction bar a few times. I get 17 over 13. That's a positive slope. Leave it as a fraction. Do not write it as a decimal, please, because remember, slope, rate of change, is rise over run. It's a fraction. Okay, last one, number 4. y2 minus y1, -9 minus -3, over x2 minus x1, 5 minus 5. -9 minus -3 divided by 5 minus 5. Now this last one, it tells us it's undefined. Because if you did the top, -9 plus 3, you'd get -6. 5 minus 5 is 0. Can we have a 0 on the bottom? No, so it's undefined, which is a vertical line. Okay. So we got a negative slope for 1, positive slope for 2, 0 slope for 3 with a 0 on top, undefined slope with a 0 on bottom for 4. We use Desmos. Desmos helps us. Thank you, Desmos. And then last but not least, this bottom part, you can go ahead and fill this out. If your slope or rate of change is 0, then your graph would be a horizontal line from left to right. This is a function because it passes the vertical line test. Remember, vertical lines would not cross it twice. But if it's an undefined slope, that would be a vertical line. Vertical lines do not pass the vertical line test. They are not functions. So you're going to get an assignment now to work on. Given tables, given 2 points, you should be able to find slope today. If you got tables, you can use the bird's beak method. Bottom minus top, change in y over change in x. You could also use the slope formula if you have a table. You can just pick 2 points. And use these notes to help you knock this out. It's one-sided. Hopefully it won't take too much of your time. If you got questions, let me know, and you can begin on that.